It has been 2 weeks since the Israel-Palestine war started, and now, the situation in Gaza is no less than hell. Since 9th October, Israel has imposed a total blockade on Gaza. This means the supply of food, medicine, water, and even electricity has been cut off by Israel in Gaza. On top of that, the continuous bombardment is unimaginable. The scenes coming out of Gaza are shocking. Look at this footage. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble. These were the buildings in Gaza that were targeted by Israel. Estimates show that more than 2,800 Palestinian civilians have been killed. Thousands still remain trapped among the rubble. Those fortunate enough to survive are seeking refuge in hospitals and schools. However, by the 16th of October, even water supplies were running low in the United Nations shelters. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, announced on the 15th of October that they were witnessing an unparalleled human catastrophe in Gaza. Mehmoon Matar, a surgeon currently operating in Gaza, conveyed to the BBC that the hospitals have reached a state of complete overwhelm. There is a severe shortage of water and electricity, with the network connection also proving to be unstable. He emphasized the desperate search for water amid the chaos. Another doctor, serving at Nasir Hospital in Gaza, highlighted the impending fuel crisis, with 60 patients relying on dialysis and 35 patients in the intensive care unit in need of ventilators. The upcoming shortage of fuel is a serious danger to their survival. This serious situation goes beyond a single hospital, affecting the whole region. On the 17th of October, health officials warned that the Soul Oncology Hospital in Gaza would face closure within 48 hours if the current situation continues, leaving all cancer patients without critical care. Consider the map of Gaza, observing its modest expanse. This strip covers just 365 kilometers squared. Comparatively, when juxtaposed with the size of New York, its small scale becomes evident. This is one of the most densely populated regions globally, with approximately 2.3 million people. Even before the commencement of the recent conflict, living conditions here were very challenging. The inhabitants of this area were subject to continuous Israeli surveillance. Their movements beyond Gaza are restricted without explicit permission from Israel. It is crucial to note that among the 2.3 million residents, almost half are children. This statistic shows the truth that roughly 60% of the victims in this war were women and children living in Gaza. However, the situation had been worse even before the outbreak of the ongoing conflict, leading some critics of Israel to label Gaza as an open-air prison, akin to an expansive penitentiary. The beginning of this current war was initiated on the 7th of October by Hamas' attack on Israel. In response, Israel has continuously targeted Gaza, making the situation even worse for the people living there. The comprehensive blockade imposed on Gaza has resulted not only in casualties among Hamas members, but also among Palestinian civilians. As a result, Gaza has transformed into a harrowing landscape, similar to a place of unimaginable suffering. People claim that Israel's actions, which affect all of Gaza's population, can be likened to acts of terrorism. The Norwegian foreign minister stated that it is unacceptable to impose a total blockade. They emphasized that at least humanitarian aid, such as medicine and food, should be allowed in Gaza. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres shared a similar opinion, stating that Israel should allow humanitarian aid in Gaza, and Hamas should release Israeli hostages without any conditions. Imagine the situation of an ordinary individual living in Gaza under these circumstances, with no access to electricity, water, or internet connection, and the inability to obtain food. The situation seems to be very serious. Then one day, you witness pamphlets falling from the sky, carrying a warning from Israel. The notice instructs all residents in the northern part of the Gaza Strip to leave right away and move to the southern part of the territory. As the sounds of bombardment echo around you, the urgency of the situation becomes very clear when you receive warnings to quickly leave your home and find safety in the southern region to ensure your survival. According to estimates, approximately 1.1 million people reside in northern Gaza. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, have issued evacuation advisories for everyone to relocate to the south. The United Nations shelters in northern Gaza have become vulnerable to attacks. In the tense conditions of northern Gaza, The risk of being targeted extends to hospitals, schools, and even clinics. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, highlighted the predicament that many pregnant women, children, and elderly individuals would have difficulty in mobility. Where would they go? How could they possibly evacuate? In addition to this, the World Health Organization issued a strong condemnation of Israel's directives. The northern region of Gaza consists of 22 hospitals, accommodating over 2,000 patients. How could these medical facilities be safely evacuated? Despite these challenges, the Israeli military reported that approximately 600,000 Gazans had evacuated from the northern area to the south. However, 500,000 people chose not to evacuate. Let us consider, for the sake of discussion, that you were among those who evacuated to the south.
Are people that were killed or injured during Israeli strikes in their homes in Deir al-Balah, which is located in southern Gaza.
Instances of airstrikes in central Gaza resulted in the destruction of numerous family residences. The inhabitants of southern Gaza faced a similar threat, as Khan Yunis, a city in the region, suffered the most from multiple airstrikes. A BBC correspondent verified the airstrike in southern Gaza, affirming that a building near the Rafah crossing had indeed sustained damage. Based on the report, Israel attacked near the Rafah crossing in southern Gaza multiple times. The Rafah border crossing holds great importance as it serves as the crucial connection point between Gaza and Egypt. As there are limited safe areas within Gaza, leaving the area has become a significant thought. With the sea on one side and Israel blocking the other two, the only possible way for escape is towards Egypt in the south. As a result, the Rafah border crossing is the only way out for those seeking to leave Gaza. In such a tough situation, some people might think about trying to escape the ongoing attacks by going to find safety outside of Gaza. As a result, a lot of people gathered at the Rafah border desperately trying to find safety. However, Egypt hasn't shown that they're ready to open this border. Other Arab countries have said that it wouldn't be okay for Palestinian refugees to go to their countries for safety. They emphasize that Palestinians shouldn't have to leave their own country. Because of all this, it seems like the conflict might get even worse. There have been fights in both Israel and Lebanon. To the north of Israel lies Lebanon, where the Hezbollah militant group operates. Like the Hamas group, Hezbollah also receives support from Iran. Notably, a month-long war between Hezbollah and Israel had already occurred in 2006, which made things even more tense in the area. In recent days, there has been a brief exchange of rocket fire between Hezbollah and Israel. On the 16th of October, an anti-tank missile was launched from Lebanon, striking a town in northern Israel and causing injuries to 3 individuals. In response, Israel has instructed its civilians to evacuate the vicinity near the Lebanon border. The main issue is that Hezbollah is even more dangerous than Hamas and has more power. They have thousands of rockets and missiles that can target any location in Israel. Additionally, Iran has also cautioned Israel that any attempt at a ground invasion in Gaza, indicating the movement of its military forces on the ground, might trigger a reaction from other geographic areas. It remains a significant mystery how Hamas managed to accumulate over 5,000 rockets in Gaza, and how Israel remained completely unaware of this. In the last video, I stated that Egypt had already warned Israel that an attack was imminent. Later, it was discovered that America also had information about it and had also warned Israel. There was an update on September 28 from multiple streams of intelligence that Hamas could launch rocket attacks across the border. On 6 October, one day before the attack, American officials circulated a report that Hamas was showing unusual activity and an attack could happen at any time. A Middle Eastern diplomat in Washington, D.C. informed CNN that his government had been consistently warning the White House and U.S. intelligence officials about the accumulation of weapons by Hamas. He further stated that the quantity of weapons in Gaza was beyond anybody's imagination. So, obviously, the question arises, did the Israeli government already know about this attack and they did nothing? Here, take a look at Israel's internal politics as well. Over the past few years, Israel's political climate has been notably unstable. Numerous elections have taken place, and the present Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has been accused of fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribery in 3 separate scandals. There are allegations suggesting that billionaires have provided him with monetary support. Despite his denial, Netanyahu is currently undergoing a corruption trial involving cases 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000. These trials are still pending. There were nationwide protests in Israel not long ago, with citizens taking to the streets in response. Throughout the progression of this confrontation, Netanyahu has leveraged emergency powers to maintain his position of authority. If this war had not occurred and the corruption trial against him proceeded as scheduled, would he have had to resign from his prime ministerial position? That's another important question. Apart from this, another allegation that is being put on Netanyahu is that he tried to encourage the Hamas group in the past. On one hand, there was the great Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. He tried relentlessly to bring peace between Israel and Palestine. The peace process was almost over when a fanatic shot him. On the other hand, what did Netanyahu do? He leads a right-wing government with a strongly assertive and aggressive style. He distributed power between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Furthermore, he disregarded the legitimate Palestinian Authority and its president. Additionally, he attempted to negotiate indirectly with Hamas, which is considered a terrorist organization, through Egypt. Refer to the article in The Telegraph titled How Benjamin Netanyahu Empowered Hamas and Broke Israel, as well as the piece from the Times of Israel dated 18th October. For years, Netanyahu supported Hamas. Now it has backfired. According to several reports, Netanyahu had proposed facilitating the transfer of funds to Gaza, emphasizing the need for a clear distinction between the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza. He suggested that this division would ensure that a Palestinian state would never be formed. An extreme right-wing politician from his political party made a statement in 2015 that Israel's policy is to treat the Palestinian Authority as a burden and treat Hamas as an asset. In 2018, the Israeli government permitted suitcases carrying millions of dollars from Qatar to enter Gaza, benefiting Hamas. These revelations may seem surprising, but the majority of the Israeli public is already aware of these events, largely due to the fact that the Israeli media, fortunately, it remains independent from their government's influence. This is the reason why, according to the latest polls, the approval rating of Netanyahu has been falling rapidly since the war started. According to a recent poll, only 29% of the Israelis support Netanyahu now, marking the lowest point ever recorded. Israel is now witnessing protests against Netanyahu's government, with people venting their anger on Netanyahu, with placards in their hands reading "Bibi, you have blood on your hands and go to jail, Bibi." In another incident, an angry mob shouted at an Israeli cabinet minister outside a hospital, causing the minister to retreat. The individual remarked that it was now time for Israeli civilians to take control. This emphasizes the significance of never completely trusting any government, organization, or group without question. Always prioritize humanity and consider the well-being of the common people. Whether they are the common people living in Israel or the common people living in Gaza, it is essential to prioritize their well-being. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much.